And some of the leaks possibly come from that group. You know, some of the leaks, which are really very serious leaks because they're very bad in terms of national security. But I also understand that's politics. And in terms of him being behind things, that's politics. And it will probably continue.
You can see the full interview tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Brian, Stephen Ainsley were there with President Donald Trump. Don't miss it. Well, up next, Bill Nye the Science Guy says global warming skeptics are touched in the head and may need help. But is he playing the role of scientist or medieval inquisitor? He'll be here to tell us. Also, we'll give you the latest updates on the investigation into Russia's ties with the Trump administration, if any. Stay tuned for that. We're coming to you live from outside the U.S. Capitol building where President Trump will session of construction because there is construction going on. There always is in Washington, the richest city in America. We want to thank you for that, for sending your tax dollars here. It's built a pretty nice place. Well, Bill Nye the Science Guy is now aspiring to a new title, Bill Nye the Psychoanalyst Guy. During a Facebook Live event with Senator Bernie Sanders today, the mechanical engineer and TV personality said, skeptics of global warming suffer from the psychological delusion of cognitive dissonance. It's a slight bump up from last year when he was open to the idea of imprisoning skeptics, global warming, as war criminals. Is that the choice? Bellevue or Nuremberg? Bill Nye joins us now. Bill, it's great to see you. That doesn't sound like science to me, Bill Nye the Science Guy. That sounds like something very different.
So cognitive dissonance is not a delusion. It's a feature. It's human nature. So we in the science community are looking for an explanation why climate change deniers, or extreme skeptics, do not accept the overwhelming scientific evidence for climate change. And the most reasonable explanation is you have a worldview, and then you have evidence, and the evidence disagrees with your worldview, so you deny the evidence. And then along with that, you deny the authorities that are providing the evidence. Now, if you have a better hypothesis for why climate deniers deny the overwhelming scientific evidence, bring it on. It's not a delusion. It's just like the fox and the grapes.
Well,
he can't reach the grapes, so he says the grapes are no good.
Look, people do come to every debate with preconceptions, and you're right about that, of course. But the essence of science is extreme skepticism. We always ought to be asking ourselves, is my hypothesis true?
I'm a member of both skeptic organizations, Mr. Carlson, and this is climate change denial is denial. The evidence is overwhelming. Don't get me wrong. I love you as a person more than life itself, but the evidence for climate change is overwhelming. So we are looking for an explanation of why you guys are having so much trouble with it.
So down, before the name calling begins, and before you try to end the conversation, let's start it by asking what exactly you mean. Now, I think most people are open to the idea that the climate is changing. It has always changed, by the way, as you know.
It's the rate, Mr. Carlson. It's the rate that's such a concern.
The core question, from what I can tell, is why the change? Is it part of the endless cycle of climate change, or is human activity causing it? That seems to be the debate to me, and it seems an open question, not a settled question, to what degree human activity is causing that. Is that not an open question?
It's not an open question. It's a settled question. Human activity is causing climate change.
To what degree?
To a degree that it's a very serious problem in the next few decades.
Wait, stop. Wait, no, you said it's a settled point, and I'm asking a very precise question.
It's a settled point.
Okay, then if you'll elucidate it for me, I'd be grateful. To what degree is climate change caused by human activities? 100% of climate change is caused by human activity? Is it 74.3%? It's settled science. Please tell us to what degree human activity is responsible.
So the word degree is a word that you chose. But the speed that climate change is happening is caused by humans. Instead of happening on timescales of millions of years, or let's say 15,000 years, it's happening on the timescale of decades and now years. Now, you know, I offered...
Wait, but hold on. But to what extent is human activity responsible for speeding that up? I mean, please be more precise.
If that's the number you want. Humans are causing it to happen catastrophically fast.
Okay, so at what rate would it have changed without human activity? And you look annoyed that I'm asking these questions, but they're very basic questions. They're not denial.
So basically, the cycles of climate change, the last ice age we had was tens of thousands of years ago. So bear in mind that in ancient dinosaur days, there was more carbon dioxide. The world was warmer than it is now. There was an inland sea in what is now Wyoming. And I understand you have a member of Congress from Colorado, used to be underwater, and you go to Dinosaur National Mine, you can see it. Okay,
yes.
But that's millions of years ago. The problem is
you just said it was tens of thousands.
That was the Ice Age. The rate.
Okay.
The rate is the
Okay.
problem. Now, here's the thing. Half the people in the world live on sea coasts. As we get the ocean a little bit warmer, the ocean's going to expand, and people live on the sea coast are going to be displaced.
But you're not answering my
I'm talking about the
question.
speed. Yes,
you're
I am.
describing
I'm
what will
talking
happen
about
if
the
this
speed of climate
continues.
change.
And I'm
It's
asking
the
you a
rate.
simple question. Hold on. I'm asking you a simple question about the rate of climate change.
So the
You
rate,
said that it would be happening, but that rate has accelerated because of human activity. And I'm asking
the
you
word
very simply.
accelerated is an understatement. Okay, it's happening extraordinarily
I'm asking you a simple
fast.
question, and because the science is settled, I hope you can answer it in simple terms, which is, without human activity, how long would it have taken for us to reach this level of warmth in our climate?
It's not clear that it would have happened. In other words, humans have changed the climate so drastically that we have almost certainly avoided another ice age. There would have been another ice age, ain't gonna happen because of you and me. So the sooner we get to work on this problem, the problem.
When would it have happened?
When would the next ice age have happened?
Yeah.
Is that
I'm
your
saying,
question?
without human activity, what would the process look? Here's the point that I hope our viewers can understand. I'm not in any way denying that the climate is changing. I'm utterly open to the possibility that the change is caused by man's activity. I'm merely calling into question your claim that all of this is settled, that that we know precisely what is happening and why, and that anyone who asks pointed questions about it is a denier and ought to be imprisoned or shouted off the stage.
No, that was your word. That's you guys. That's not my claim, and I really.
Would you like me to read your quote that people who disagree with you ought to potentially go to jail? You said that.
Okay.
And I'm just saying,
I'm not sure that's exactly what I said, Mr. Carlson. We can talk about that shortly, but.
Is it appropriate to jail the guys from Enron? Was it appropriate to jail the people in the cigarette industry who promised it wasn't addictive, et cetera?
Okay.
Look, my only point is, shouldn't we be encouraging people to ask honest questions, which I am doing, and you don't seem to have the answers to those questions.
Okay, I got to disagree with you. I claim I do have the answers.
Okay.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Why aren't you concerned about it? Don't you have 4 children? Why aren't you concerned
I am
about
concerned.
climate
That's
change?
why I'm having you on. Look, you don't reach correct conclusions in science or politics or any other field unless you can ask honest answers without being shouted down by people like you.
But I know what you mean. So
no, I do
what
mean
answer
ask.
do you want?
I do mean I want to know what would happen without human activity. The climate change. No, it's a simple question. The climate is always changing. You've conceded that. You're saying that human activity has increased the speed.
Yeah.
Increases the speed of that change. And my point is, what would the climate look like right now without human activity?
At what point would it have warmed or cooled? Britain would not be very well suited to growing. Yes, Britain would not be very well suited to growing grapes as it is today. French winemakers would not be buying land to the north as they are now. People who plan to run ski resorts would still be able to do it in Europe. And so the climate change and the parasites.
You're using the language of politics. Look, you're not a scientist, as you know. You're a popularizer,
and
I just think, and that's fine.
Of economics.
But so I'm just saying, look,
asked what it would
to the extent that you prevent people, if you prevent people from having an honest conversation, you're doing a grave disservice to science. Don't you think that?
So you asked how long it would be before. What would the climate would be like if humans weren't involved right now? Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly right.
So
at what point would it have changed? And I'm just saying, you don't actually know because it's unknowable.
So why aren't you open to questions? This is how long it takes you to interrupt me, okay? It takes you quite a bit less than 6 seconds. So the climate would be like it was in 1750. And economics would be that you could not grow wine-worthy grapes in Britain as you can today because the climate is changing. The use of pesticides in the Midwest would not be increasing because the parasites are showing up sooner or the pests are showing up sooner and hanging around longer.
I think that's probably all true, but you
would not be overwhelmed by pine bark beetles as it is because of climate change. That's how
so
the world
much of
would
this
be
you
different
don't
if it
know.
weren't for humans.
You pretend that you know, but you don't know, and you bully people who ask you questions.
I really have to disagree with you. I spent a lot of time with this topic.
I'm open-minded. You are not, and we're out of time, unfortunately.
So,
thank you for joining us.
You guys are the mainstream media, and I can tell you why they're leaks. Because the president has created 2 factions in his administration. They don't like each other, so they leak. It's not from the outside, it's from the inside. Carry on, Mr. Carlson. I'm sure we will cross paths again.
That's a very ominous thing to say. I don't know what it means, but come back anytime. The president and Congress, meanwhile, continue to go back and forth over the ongoing investigation of Russia's role in the November election. For more on that, we go to Fox correspondent Trace Gallagher. Hey, Trace.
Hey, Tucker, California Congressman Devin Nunes is the first GOP lawmaker to come out and say that he has not seen any evidence of inappropriate communications between President Trump's aides and Russia. And his statement carries some weight considering Nunes is the chair of the House Intel Committee, which is investigating the allegations. Here he is.
Right now, I don't have any evidence that would of any phone calls. It doesn't mean they don't exist, but I don't have that. And what I've been told is by many folks is that there's nothing there.
Nunes also rejected calls to request the president's tax returns, which Democrats believe might contain information of possible Trump business deals with Russia. California Congressman Adam Schiff, the ranking Democrat on the House Intel Committee, quickly responded, reminding Congressman Nunes that the investigation is in its infancy. Watch.
From the committee's point of view, that's obtained no documents, heard no witnesses, and not been given any testimony by the FBI what they've investigated. There's no basis to draw that conclusion.
Schiff is also accusing the Trump administration of using intelligence officials and top lawmakers to knock down media stories about Trump associates and their ties to Russia. Congressman Nunes admits that he called a reporter on behalf of the administration, but says it's all in the spirit of transparency. And White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer says the administration is simply ensuring that reporters got the answers they needed. But House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi says she believes Congressman Nunes is, quote, stonewalling the investigation. Tucker.
Trace Gallagher. Up next, a bunch of congressmen are defying President Trump's immigration agenda by inviting illegal immigrants to tomorrow's speech before the joint session. We'll talk to one of those congressmen. Just outside the Capitol building, you can see in the background, in just 24 hours, President Trump will give his first address to a joint session of Congress. The president has pledged to speed up the deportation of illegal immigrants, and that's provoking fury from congressional Democrats. As a show of resistance, tomorrow several of them will be inviting illegal immigrants to attend the speech. One of those congressmen planning to rebuke the president in this manner is Jared Polis. He's a Democrat from Colorado. Congressman Polis joins us tonight. Congressman, thanks for coming on.
Tucker, thanks for having me on. I like to think educate the president rather than rebuke him about this important topic.
Well, it's a little weird that you as a lawmaker are flouting federal law by having someone who's breaking it in the chamber where laws are made. I mean, if Republicans showed up with people who violated federal gun laws or tax evaders, you would say, come on. I mean, that undermines the rule of law itself, doesn't it?
Well, Oscar, like 750,000 people, has a deferred action, or DACA card, which is a program that President Obama put in place. So he can work legally today. He can fly. He can, was able to get here, obviously, and show his ID. What we're worried about is President Trump could cancel that program, which would actually create 750,000 more people here illegally, and they wouldn't be able to go to work legally the next day. People like Oscar and so many others like him.
Well, but I mean, look, it's illegal. The previous president decided somehow through magic that it's not illegal. But if you think these people ought to be here legally, why don't you change the law? You're a member of Congress. Isn't that how our laws are supposed to be made, by members of Congress?
Well, I think, look, hopefully you and I agree that the optimal place to deal with it is Congress. We had a bipartisan immigration bill that reduced the deficit by $200 billion. It would have actually provided a pathway to citizenship for Oscar. That's something he doesn't have today. But the best we have now is permission for him to go to work through deferred action, which so far President Trump has kept. And I think it's important that he meet the faces of the aspiring Americans who work hard and pay taxes. Oscar's been working since he's 14 years old. He was in junior ROTC in high school. He wanted to join the Army. He was told by the recruiter he scored in the top few percent, and they had to turn him away because he didn't have a Social Security number. So if we want to make America great, we need to deploy the talents and skills of immigrants like Oscar.
So that you just answered my next question, which is, what is the point of all this? We're making, middle America is dying. The life expectancy, a lot of people, is dropping, and you're spending your time elevating people who are here by definition in violation of our laws. And you're saying you're doing it because it helps us. If that's true, why don't other countries do this? Why isn't China inviting illegal immigrants to come in and make it better? Why isn't Mexico doing that? No other country is doing this except us. If it's really a good thing, why aren't they doing it?
Well, I'm a fan of finding out ways to do it legally, but the truth is, when you look at important industries in our economy, like agriculture, like the tourism industry, we need people here who are able to work those jobs. Oscar's been working full-time since he was 14 years old, works 2 jobs. He has 3 siblings that have all been working from a young age. We need the skills and talents of immigrants to make our country great. And I think we need to find a way to do it legally.
You're a smart guy. I know that. We went to the same school, actually, so I know you're a smart guy. You don't really believe that our agriculture industry is the reason they're here. I mean, we have more Americans unemployed than at any time since the Great Depression. There's not a labor shortage in this country. We have just the opposite of a labor shortage. We have a surfeit of Americans who have no jobs. So that's why we're bringing in low-skilled labor, because no one else will do it? Is that really your argument?
Look, Oscar is a small businessman today. He's created 6 jobs for Americans with his own small business. A disproportionate share of entrepreneurs and founders of companies, large and small, are immigrants. So if we want to grow jobs here, we ought to be able to attract the best and brightest from across the world to deploy their talents in our country and create jobs.
Wait, but you're making – wait, no, hold on, Congressman. You're making 2 arguments that are mutually exclusive. You're saying we need to bring in a lot of people with no skills and low education to pick our fruit. Our agriculture industry needs them. And then you're saying we need people to come in to start new businesses across the board. But the overwhelming majority of the people who come here, but the overwhelming majority are low-skilled labor. And we don't, demonstrably, we don't need that. We've got millions and millions of unemployed Americans.
Are you going to go to those fields and pick those crops? I mean, I hear from the dairy industry. I hear from farmers. Right now, you should know this, Tucker.
Not at those wages. No American
They hire people under the table. That's what they do today because there's not respect for our laws. For our laws to have respect, we need to align them to the actual needs of the economy. The economy and the invisible hand are a powerful force. You can only deny them so long. We need people to support our quality of life and to support our economy. And the immigrants are an important part of that.
We need a serf class. So when did Democrats, liberal Democrats, find themselves on the side of employers hoping for more low-wage labor to exploit? I thought Democrats were supposed to be protecting those people like Cesar Chavez did. But you're saying they want to hire people at a lower wage, and we can't get in the way because the invisible hand demands it? Is that what you're arguing?
Tucker, I'm on the side of consumers, and I hope you are too. I think Americans care a lot about what they, especially low and moderate income Americans, about the cost of milk and the cost of eggs and the cost of fruit at the grocery store, the cost of goods at Walmart. We could get into trade and how important it is that we oppose President Trump's tariff agenda that would be regressive and raise costs on items for working families. Okay. But consumers are important. Every American's a consumer, and to have those low prices, we need to make sure that we're able to have our jobs filled.
Cheap goods are great, but let me just, last question for you. Are you arguing that your average low-skilled laborer, not your friend Oscar, who sounds like a great guy, but the average low-skilled laborer is a net plus to the American economy? In other words, produces more in taxes than he consumes in services? Are you going to say that with a straight face?
I can say it would be devastating to the American economy if the 11 million people that are here today, some of whom are working in low-wage jobs, were somehow to be deported or to disappear. That would be devastating. It would cost us a couple points of GDP, and it would increase our deficit.
It would certainly force employers to pay more to their employees. Congressman, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
On the Fox News Channel.
Well, last week on the show, we talked to Alex Nowrasteh, an economist at the Cato Institute, who called for letting in a huge number of immigrants while largely abolishing the social safety net at the same time. In recent years, liberals have been happy to borrow libertarian rhetoric to promote immigration, but they're in no rush to tear down the welfare state. Rehan Salam is executive editor at National Review and a columnist at Slate. In a fascinating new piece, he points out that the immigration alliance between liberals and libertarians is creating incoherent policies that will either cost taxpayers billions or create an impoverished underclass of immigrant workers. Mr. Salam joins us now. Rehan, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm under arrest in the background, as you can hear. But you
it's about time,
in my remaining moments, let me ask you, you point out that there's this fascinating and weird and unstable coalition between the left and the right on immigration, but it can't last.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Why are they together on this?
So here's the thing. You've got folks on the left who say we need to invest in the next generation. We need to invest in poor families to ensure that they can lead decent and dignified lives in our country, because these kids are going to be our future workforce. Okay, you've got those folks saying that. Then you have libertarians who are saying let's let in a ton of low-wage, less skilled workers, and let's not give them any of these benefits. Let's not invest in their future. And so then, these families are going to have to fend for themselves. Now, the thing is that these are very incompatible views. On the one hand, you have people who say that this is all going to work out really well as long as we make those big investments, i.e., as long as we spend a lot of money. And then you have other people saying that that would be a terrible thing. So that's kind of weird, right? I mean, either one side is right or the other side is right. They can't both be right.
Right. And I'm wondering, as I was reading your piece, I was thinking, so there is a pretty powerful coalition pushing for increased immigration, or the status quo on immigration, and I'd throw big business in there also. But there's no comparable coalition on the right. Why haven't environmental groups, which clearly have an interest in preserving the pristine continent that we have as a country, and the Pat Buchanan people, why haven't they gotten together?
Well, it's honestly very simple, because you used to have more folks on the left who said, you know, wait a second, we need to have a more moderate and restrained immigration policy because the world is changing, because the fate of workers with less than a high school diploma is very different in 2017 than it was in 1957. But those folks have largely gone away because of this idea that it's necessarily bigoted to say that we should, for now, admit immigrants largely on the basis of whether or not they're going to be able to support themselves without the earned income tax credit or Medicaid and what have you. This is not because less skilled, low-wage immigrants are bad people. Quite the opposite. They are, generally speaking, great people. It's because the country has changed. We also have a large number of low-wage, less skilled immigrants in the country right now, and it's going to take time and resources to ensure that they can be full participants in our society. That, in my view, is not a bigoted perspective. It's simply a prudent one.
And you're hearing that from almost no one. Why?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically politics, Tucker, because you have a very powerful, influential coalition of people. You mentioned employers before, right? So think about it this way. If I work for Walmart and I own, and I'm earning less than minimum, if I'm earning very low wages, I'm earning minimum wage, it's not Walmart's fault that I came from a broken home. It's not Walmart's fault that I didn't get much of an education. So maybe you could say, hey, it's not Walmart's responsibility to see to it that I am able to support a family. But if you are an employer and you're saying, gosh, my business is going to go belly up if I am not able to have lots of low-wage immigrants, well then, shouldn't you be the one taking responsibility for their medical care? Shouldn't you be the one taking responsibility for seeing to it that their kids don't go hungry at night? And that's not the way it works. Employers shunt this responsibility onto everyone else, and that strikes me as pretty irresponsible.
Totally irresponsible. And the Republican Party has defended it for a long time, but that may be changing. Rayan Salam, really smart. I hope you will come back.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Up next, you might think of street art, to the extent you think of it at all, is a liberal genre, but there is at least one conservative street artist out there. He's talented, by the way, and he spent the last week mocking Hollywood. He calls himself Sabo. We're going to talk to him next.
We are very welcoming to outsiders here in Hollywood. We don't discriminate against people based on what countries they come from. We discriminate against them based on their age and weight.
As a Mexican, as a Latin American, as a migrant worker, as a human being, I'm against any form of wall that wants to separate us.
My absence is out of respect for the people of my country and those of other 6 nations whom have been disrespected by the inhumane law that bans entry of immigrants to the U.S.
Who could watch that? Not many people, it turned out. Anyway, Hollywood has not been this politically inflamed since the Bush administration, maybe since the 50s. Now one artist is pushing back against the tide. Sabo is what he calls himself. He's a street artist based in Los Angeles. He previously created a viral image showing Ted Cruz as a tattooed bodybuilder. You see it on the screen. Now this past weekend, he put up a series of posters around L.A. calling out Hollywood for making, quote, unwatchable movies from unreadable books. Ironically, it's a phrase taken from the movie True Romance, which you can't watch now because it was made by Quentin Tarantino, who he calls a celebritard. Sabo joins us from L.A. Sabo, thanks for coming on. So,
yeah, thanks for having me.
You have behind all this art is what seems to be a pretty coherent critique of Hollywood. What is it?
Well, I would hope so. I've loved politics my whole life, so
yeah.
You know, I live in L.A. and I'm in the belly of the beast, so why not punch it every now and then?
So
and
what
that
are you
young man that was just talking
LA?
about, What am I saying about L.A.?
Yeah.
I love L.A., but these entertainers, we welcome them into our homes because we find them entertaining, only to be punched in the head with their politics. And
Yes.
I think that's kind of rude.
Do you think movies are getting worse?
Yeah, maybe we're just getting dumber. I'm not sure if they are or not. But that young man that was talking about not wanting walls, he obviously didn't see those huge walls that were dividing us from them, or the walls that were separating us from all those Hollywood parties after the show.
Yeah, I noticed that. The only illegal immigrants in those parties were serving the canapes. So you put up these posters that I think are clever. I mean, well, they are clever, whether you agree with them or not, and they're smart and they're funny. And you put them all over Los Angeles, and they go directly at your hometown industry. What kind of response have you gotten from that?
I've gotten a great response. I kind of gave up and just started doing what I love. And when I did that, all of the underground conservatives in Hollywood just sort of came out. And while in the beginning I was getting hate from the left, as time progressed, I started seeing that there was more and more conservatives and Republicans in Hollywood. Unfortunately, they're just kind of hiding because they know to hide.
So if you're a conservative in Hollywood, or if you have unorthodox views, if you're not with everyone else, I mean, you must feel very, very isolated, but you must also have to think through what you believe. You can't take anything for granted if you're you.
No, I don't. I love a good fight. I'd rather be in the mix of it. I don't like being comfortable. I actually love liberals. I love partying with them, hanging out with them. I just don't want them governing over me because they want to take control over every aspect of my life.
There's been this weird reversal where you're a conservative and yet you're the insurgent giving the finger to the comfortable people in power, to the privileged in your world. You're doing what artists are supposed to do. Do you see that?
Yes, I do, and I'm disappointed with a lot of political artists because the past 8 years, Barack Obama was dropping a bomb every 8 to 20 minutes, and they said nothing. And now you can't shut them up. And, you know, that told me something about them. They're just very much establishment artists.
Yeah, they certainly are. Do you know any artists who agree with you?
You know, I know some. I don't think they're as mean as I am. I mean, you know, I try and be kind of brutal with what I do, and I notice you kind of blurred out my poster.
We have to. This is live television on a cable network. But anyone who's interested can go online, and your site has them unexpurgated, and you can see exactly what they say. But we're not. We can't. We're gonna have to violate the integrity of your art for the sake of our standards. But you think that there are other artists who agree fundamentally, or any of them saying so out loud?
You know, they're out there. I've heard some. It's like I don't know a lot of them. I'm not going to tell you I know a lot of them. Not that do what I do, but you know, I'm sure. I notice there's a whole crop of young conservatives out there. I can't wait to see what they bring to the table in the near future.
Yeah, I suspect they will. They really are the outsiders. Seba, thanks for joining us. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Coming up next, we want to share a letter one of our viewers sent to us, which details the real human costs of our refugee policies. It's really interesting. Stay tuned for that.